Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to continue our look into the Future Sight set, and we're going to look at Future Shock, which is a red and green deck. So let's look at the deck list. So we have 25 creatures, 3 instants, 4 sorceries, 4 enchantments, and 24 land, and a mana curve off to the side there. So let's just dive in and start looking at these creatures. So the theme of Future Shock, the deck. As you saw in the Fate Blaster video, which was the deck we looked at last time, one of the gimmicks of Future Sight, the set, was that some cards were in this future shifted card frame to represent them being cards from a future set that had I know travel back in time into the present day to show up in your booster packs. So that's why all these cards have an incredibly different looking frame. I don't like this frame. I was going to say hate. Hate's too strong. I don't like it personally, but a lot of people probably do. It probably has its fans. So the theme of Future Shock is it's kind of red green aggro, but the gimmick it's really doubling down on is only using cards with this card frame, which is an interesting gimmick. Whether or not it works, we'll see as we look at the cards. But yeah, that's basically the theme. It is as simple as that. It is just cards with this frame. And there's actually a fair number of them, as we'll see. Enough to do a whole deck of them. So anyway, one of the rares of the deck is Baru, Fist of Crosa. 3 colours and 2 green with he's a 4/4. Whenever a forest comes into play, green creature you control get +1/+1 and gain trample end of turn. So that doesn't have to be a forest under your control. It can be an opponent playing a forest. And he has this ability called Grandeur. So discard another card named Baru, Fist of Crosa. Put an XX green worm creature token into play where X is the number of lands you control. So I'm sort of torn on this. So Baru, I think, is like a fine creature. He's 5 mana 4/4 with like a decent ability. Gives a board wide buff whenever whenever a land comes into play. Basically, if you can get ways to get multiple forests out in a single turn, then it's very, very good. I'm not convinced this is the best rare to put in one of these decks, though, because basically you can't use half of his text box, the Grandeur ability. And like Grandeur, I think, is a cool ability. The fact that you can you get some benefit out of having multiple copies of a legendary creature, I think it's pretty cool. And there's a whole cycle of these, like all the Grandeur legendaries, and they all have like fun designs and like really powerful effects. Because creating a XX worm, which is scaling the number of lands you control, just by discarding another copy of the card, so no mana cost, is really, really strong. But of course you can't do it in this deck because there's only one copy of Baru. So I mean, I guess this obviously pushes deck building for a new player, but out of the box, it feels kind of bad, I think, to have a card where you just can't use half the text, but overall okay. I mean, it is still usable as a creature. Obviously, it has its ability. 2 Centaur Omen Readers. So 4 mana for a 3/3. As long as it's tapped, creature spells you play cost 2 less to cast. This is pretty good. It's a snow creature as well. So again, from somewhere in the future, there's another snow set maybe where this might get reprinted. I think it's a good ability. There's no way, I think, of like getting it tapped down apart from attacking, unfortunately. But yeah, this is still fine. Obviously, you can attack with it. It's like decently sized. And then second main phase, you can cast creatures at reduced cost. Yeah, I think it's okay. 2 Imperiosaur. So this has been reprinted. This was in the first Modern Master set, and it was an absolute house in draft. So 2 colours and 2 green for 5/5, but you can only cast it with mana produced by basic lands, which I think is the only option in this deck anyway. I don't think there's any other way of getting mana apart from basic lands. So this essentially has no drawback. It's just a 5/5 with no drawback. But yeah, pretty good card. It is now a dinosaur as well. It has been oracled away from being a lizard. It is now a full-fledged dinosaur. So a Nakatl Warp Ride. So this thing is kind of, I'm really surprised this isn't rare, honestly. Right, so 3 colours and 3 green for a 3/3. It has to be blocked by exactly 1 creature if able. When it attacks, it makes X token copies of itself. which then they all have to be blocked as well. So this is kind of nuts. So the number of token copies it makes is equal to the number of creatures the defending player has. So yeah, this is really strong, honestly. I used to run this in a deck with I think probably some stuff that buffed warriors and what else? Probably like Primal Crux, which was a creature that has power and toughness equal to the number of green mana symbols amongst permanents you control, because obviously the copies include their mana value. So yeah, this is a really strong card. I'm really surprised it's not rare, because it's very strong. Because you basically swing with this, you make a bunch of tokens which all have to be blocked. All your other stuff gets through absolutely fine, and you could potentially wipe out a bunch of creatures. This is better than a normal lure effect, because a lure effect normally, okay, everything blocks the lured creature, and it maybe kills like one or two of the things that block it. But this, you're making an army of 3/3 creatures that's potentially trading like a lot more favorably, and even if they die, it doesn't matter, they were tokens. As long as the original is still around, then it's fine. So yeah, really good card. 3 Nessian Coursers, just a 3 mana 3/3. It's really nice. It has no abilities, so it has like this nice full art. And I sort of mentioned in the last video, really wish this had become the standard going forward for creatures with no abilities, that they just got full art like this. But no, it is what it is. So the other rare of the deck is Quagnoth. So 5 colour and 1 green for a 4/5. It has split second, so when it's on the stack you can't respond to it, so you can't counter it basically. It has Shroud, so it can't be targeted. And is this the first time Shroud's been keyworded? I don't think so. No, it must have been keyworded before now. Yeah. And whenever a spell or ability would cause you to discard it, it goes back to your hand. So yeah, just a pretty big, slippery, hard to deal with beat stick, really. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine as a rare. A single spell wild oof, so 1 color and 1 green for a 1/3. Spells that target it cost 2 less to play, which is a good ability. Except there are no buff spells in this deck, so this is only going to benefit your opponent, unfortunately. But it's an okay ability to have. If you obviously build the deck around it, have like some expensive pump spells or auras or something. But as it is currently in this deck, nothing. It doesn't benefit from this ability. There's nothing that would get the reduced cost, which is a shame. But we have 3 Sporoloth ancients. I was going to say agents. That's not right. They're not agents. 3 Sporoloth ancients. 3 colors and 2 green for a 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a spore counter on it. Creatures you control have removed 2 spore counters from this creature. Put a 1/1 green sapling creature token into play. So Time Spiral blocks final bone for fungus decks. This just basically means it costs you 1 less spore counter to make saplings. So the whole block altogether, you could come out of this with like a really nice, really well put together, solid like fungus deck with all the the spore counters and making thalids and saplings. Yeah, great. And there's 3 of them in as well. And also, I mean, it's just a 4/4 for 5 mana. That's every 2 turns is going to poop out a sapling token. So yeah, perfectly fine card to have. 3 Thornwheeled Archers, 2/1 with Reach and Death Touch. So I think this is the first time that Reach and Death Touch are actually keyworded and basically remain going forward. The fact that it's just a 2/1 with 2 very good abilities for 2 mana, yeah, really good. Really good card to have in here. I prefer Deadly Recluse, which is the defensive version. It's a spider with Reach and Death Touch, and it's a 1/2. I prefer that one more, but this was really good. And it's an elf as well, which is going to matter in Lorwyn coming up. And then we have a single Dryad Arbor, which is technically a non-basic land, but it's also technically a creature. So it is a land creature. It is a forest dryad. So it has no mana value or mana cost, but it counts as green. It's a 1/1. So it's kind of. I never got the appeal of Dryad Arbor, because it's kind of like, to me, it's like the worst parts of a creature and a land, in the fact that so it can't use its abilities the turn it comes in, because it has Summoning Sickness. It can't tap to add green the turn you play it. but then it's also vulnerable. It's like it's essentially just land war elves that costs no mana, basically, but takes up your land drop. So I don't know. I never personally saw the appeal of Dryad Arbor. I like I like land creatures being like a card type. But yeah, this never really did anything for me. But you know, if I'm wrong about Dryad Arbor, please explain in the comments why Dryad Arbor is good. To my casual, uneducated scrub brain. Two Bloodshot Trainees, 3 colors and a red for a 2/3. Taps do 4 damage to a creature, which is really good. But it has to have power 4 or more to be able to use that ability. And again, I'm not sure there's a way in this deck actually to make that go. Apart from maybe Baru, that's the only way I can think of raising its power. I don't think there's any other ways in the deck, but I might be wrong. But yeah, you know, if you can hit that requirement, then yeah, it's obviously a really solid ability. Boulder Intimidator, 5 colors and 2 red for a 5/5, has the best line of rules text in the game. Cowards can't block warriors, and you can turn creatures into cowards or into warriors to mess around like with blocking restrictions. Yeah, Boulder Intimidator is really great. I really like this art for it as well, and this is not the art that gets used when it gets reprinted in Morning Tide. It's a shame because like this looks super good. I really like this art. We have a single Fomori Nomad, just 5 mana for 4/4 with no abilities. Again, it being a giant matters going into Lorwyn, so that's kind of good. 3 Grinny Ignis as an elemental, which again matters going into Lorwyn actually. Grinning Ignis is kind of crazy. So 2 colors and a red for a 2/2. 1 red, return it to your hand, and you add 2 colors and a red to your mana pool, and only any time you can do a sorcery. So I always thought this was good for building up Storm, right? Because it's essentially you just essentially pay 1 red to raise your Storm count by 1. Because you play it, use its ability, it goes back to your hand, you get 2 colors and a red, you play it again, you pay a red, get it back to your hand. So right, so this should be like a staple in Storm decks, right? Or am I missing something? I mean that's a really good like investment of mana that you just have essentially. Well, you gain 2, don't you? Essentially, you have to pay 1 red to get it back. But yeah, I think Grinning Ignis is pretty good, and yeah, there's 3 of them. Lot of multiple copies in this deck. But I think just because there wasn't a massive card pool of these time shifted cards to work, future shifted cards to work with. Right, a single Skizik Surger. This has been reprinted actually. Grinning Ignis. This showed up in Strixhaven, which I was really happy to see because I actually really like this card. Anyway, single Skizik Surger, 4 colors and 2 red for a 6/4 with haste. So like really big hasty creature to drop and immediately swing with, and it has Echo. We have to sacrifice 2 lands. So I guess they were playing this idea of like, oh, maybe the Echo doesn't have to be a mana cost at all. Maybe it can be something else. It's okay. I think I don't know. Is it worth sacrificing 2 lands to keep this around? I think you could just drop this for 6 and then just swing with it once, and you know it's fine if you don't want to keep it around. But I suppose by the time you can cast it at 6 mana, maybe you don't need the 2 lands that much. I don't know. And then moving on to non-creature spells, a single Emblem of the Warmind. I have no idea why this is future shifted because like nothing about it screams like wacky mechanics. It's just a 2 mana aura, and all your creatures have haste. I have no idea why it's future shifted. Nothing about it implies wacky experimental mechanic. You know, it's not Steam Flogger Boss or anything. We have 3 Flowstone Embraces. Here we go. This is the way actually you can give your Bloodshot Trainee power 4 or more. Here we go. So Flowstone Embraces. So 1 color and a red. As an aura goes on a creature, you tap the aura. You don't tap the creature. So I think that was the experiment here. Like, oh, what if auras could tap? Like, because I mean, technically, enchantments can be tapped. Doesn't do anything most of the time. But here, I think Future Sight had a few enchantments or auras that could tap. Enchanted creatures +2, -2 until end of turn. So yeah, you put this on the Bloodshot Trainee, and then you've got a way to use this ability. 3 Ghost Fires. So this is the first mention of Ugin, who is going to become super important in the lore and storyline, but we don't care about that on this video series. We only care about cards. I actually really like Ghost Fire. 2 cards and a red. It's colorless, so it gets around stuff like protection from red, and does 3 damage. It's basically Incinerate. You have to pay 1 extra to get around like color restrictions, essentially. Yeah, I think it's fine. 3 Edge of Autumn. I never really liked Edge of Autumn this much. So 1 colours, 1 green. If you control 4 or fewer lands, search your library for a basic land, put it into play, tap, then shuffle your library, and has cycling where you can sacrifice a land. So I never really like. I guess it's not better than Rampant Growth. Rampant Growth is what I consider the benchmark for like ramp spells, because Rampant Growth is just 2 mana land, basic land into play tapped. But this only does Rampant Growth if you have like 4 or fewer lands, and if you have more than that, then this is a dead card. Well, it's not a dead card because you can sacrifice a land to cycle it, and I don't know, maybe by paying the cycling cost by sacrificing it, then you go below 4 or fewer lands, so then you could play it again. I guess maybe, I don't know. Not so keen on Edge of Autumn. But again, I know like a lot of people are really excited by it. Maybe because it just has like cycling just to sacrifice a land, like you just sack a land, draw a card, I guess, maybe. I don't know. A single phosphorescent feast, so 2 colours and 3 green. Reveal any number of cards from your hand. You get 2 life for every green mana symbol. So this is the precursor to Chroma. This gets reprinted in Shadowmoor or Eventide. I can't remember which. But yeah, this is kind of okay. Although, I mean, you are revealing cards. You typically never want to do that to like give away what's in your hand. And so, what, 5 mana? How much life would you have to gain to make this worthwhile? It's like one of these cards where like you would want another phosphorescent feast, because if you cast 1 and you've got another one in your hand, you get 6 life just from that one. Yeah, you'd probably want to get at least sort of 6-8 life to actually make this worthwhile. Otherwise, you're paying like not Stream of Life, Natural Spring, something like that. It's a very mediocre green life gain card. That's all it does. It just gains you life. So yeah, that was it. That was the deck. So what could have been? So I wanted to say to the theme here, and so like, okay, well these are the other like future shifted cards that might have worked. So we'll talk about Storm Entity first, just because like Grinning Ignis is in here, and I think it would have worked okay. And you've actually got the Omen Reader Centaur as well that reduces cost to spells or creature spells specifically. So Storm Entity comes in with a +1 counter for every other spell you've cast this turn. Actually, no, each other's spell play the turn, so not just your spells, other opponent's spells as well. And I just thought, you've got the Grinning Ignis. This could be a way to like build up a big storm entity. I don't know. I thought that could be fun. Alternate rares. So I think Baru is okay. Quagnoth, I think, is like a little disappointing. But there wasn't really much to work with. So either Shah of Nar Isle, who's 4 mana for a 6/6 trample, has Echo 0. But if you pay the echo cost, your opponents can draw up to 3 cards. So maybe like how badly do you want a 6/6 trample for 4 mana? Because there's really nothing stopping you getting this down, paying 4 mana, letting your opponent essentially draw 3 cards, and then them just immediately killing this or like bouncing it back or something. So, in retrospect, actually glad this wasn't in the deck. Also, why is it rare? Like, this is like a really big drawback. Maybe uncommon, but yeah, maybe not great. Yeah, in retrospect, Shah Isle is not a great choice. So Thunderblade Charge is another one possibly. So 1 colours and 2 red. It's a sorcery, does 3 damage to a creature or player. Whenever 1 or more creature you control deal combat damage to a player, if Thunderblade Charge is in your graveyard, you can pay 5 mana, and if you do, you cast it again. So actually this could have been potential, because it's still a red-green aggro deck, so you're doing combat damage. So I think this might have been better than Quagnoth, I think. Yeah, I think that would have been a better choice. But yeah, as I said, that's kind of all the choices in terms of future shifted cards. As far as I know, there's no other like good, rare, like future shifted card that could have been in this deck. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But anyway, so in summary, I think this is okay. I think it's got like a cute idea of doing the future shifted cards only. Whether or not it would have worked, I don't know. It seems kind of straightforward. It's just red green aggro, isn't it? Kind of a shame that it hasn't got like stuff like pump spells to benefit some of the cards in here. But yeah, overall I think it's okay. But what are your thoughts on this deck? Did you own this deck? And if you've got any thoughts or opinions or stories about it, please put a comment below. I always like reading people's comments. But I'll be back next time. I'm going to look at another future shite. Oh no, that's terrible. I shouldn't call it future shite. It's an okay set. Future sight. I'll look at another future sight pre-constructed deck. But until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a great day.